All right, can everybody hear me okay in the back? Cool. Good morning, first of all. Thanks for coming here today. It's still a bit early for some of us, in particular if we had a busy night last night. I hope you had a fun night as well. And I hope you enjoyed day one of Mac as well. And if we have a good session today, this will be also a good way to start your second day at Mac. So this is the What's New in Outlook web app presentation. So I hope you are in the right room. If you're not, now may be the good time to find the right room where you're supposed to be at. Otherwise, you're going to be hearing about Outlook web app for the next 60 minutes or so. Just to give you a sense of what this session will be about, we're going to cover at a relatively high level these four main areas of Outlook web app. Some of you may be familiar with some of the features that we're going to show. They are from Exchange 2013, but there's going to be a lot of new stuff for all of you to see. We have these four main topics today, and we're going to have four presenters, so you're going to see people coming and going through the stage as we go through the different topics for today's presentation. I guess I didn't introduce myself at the beginning, but my name is Eduardo Melo. I'm a program manager on the OWA inbox team. And this is actually my first Mac, so I'm pretty excited to be here and interact with you folks, both during the session as well as throughout the rest of the conference. And my part of today's presentation will be about inbox and mobile as well. Before we jump into the specifics of that topic, I thought it was good to sort of step back a little bit and talk about some of the key design goals and principles we had when we built Outlook web app in Exchange 2013. And try to compare and contrast 2010 and 2013 and some of the things that happened during those years between those two releases. So when we looked at that, we saw that the web and web apps have evolved dramatically during those years, and browsers became richer, more capable of doing a lot of things that you couldn't do in that 2010 timeframe. So we want to make sure that OWA in 2013 had a very fresh, very clean, very modern look and feel, and also take advantage of some of the new capabilities that browsers offered. We also noticed that people were using more and more mobile devices and tablets to access their email, to do triage, and so on. So we want to make sure that we optimize for that experience as well on different form factors, but in particular for touch and touch gestures, which is a key component of those mobile devices. And last but not least, we want to make sure that we could provide an experience that was great when you're online, when you're connected, but also works pretty well if you are disconnected, if you are offline when you're using Outlook web app. So you're going to see how these design goals really influenced how we built the product and different features throughout the session today. For me, specifically focusing on inbox and focusing on mobile, these are sort of the key pillars, if you will, or key groups of features that I'm going to be going over through today. I'm not going to touch on each and every single one of them today. We just won't have time for that. But I'll touch on some of the key ones. The other thing that we're going to do at the end is there's a lot of other sessions today which are deep dives, let's say on clutter or on documents and attachments. And we will have pointers at the end if you're interested in going to one of those deep dive sessions so that you know when and where they are going to be happening. So with that, let me jump to some demos. Sorry, press one too fast. Go back. All right, so what I have here is an iPad mini, as you can see. And I'm going to show you what the Outlook web experience on iOS looks like. You may have seen some of that already yesterday at the keynote when we showed that for Android. And there's a lot of similarities between what you get on Android as well as what you get on iOS. And as you might expect, I'm able to go through my email. There's a lot of things that I don't need to go through here, so I can just quickly select them and mark them for deletion, for example, right? I can reply to emails. And I can mark some things for later, so I can flag them so that I can take a look at them later. And all you can see with a pretty fluid, pretty fast user experience that is optimized for a device like this. The other thing that you may notice is on the top left corner, I'm in airplane mode, so I'm completely disconnected right now. So all that you've seen, I was able to do based on the content that I had in my inbox from the last time I was able to sync. Right? So imagine that if I'm getting on a flight or if I'm in somewhere where I don't have connectivity, all the data that I was able to download the last time I was connected is still available to me while I'm in offline mode. You may also see that I have one unsent item. That was that reply that I created while I was offline. So that item is still on my device. It hasn't gone out yet because, again, I'm disconnected. But as soon as I get connected, all the changes that I've made here on this device will be synced in back to my mailbox. So if the Wi-Fi is working well here, as you can see, that one unsent item is now gone. It was sent as soon as I got connected back again. So this shows you a little bit of what you can do on a device that is touch, and touch only in this case, as well as what you can do while you are in offline mode in OWA. So now if we switch back to desktop, so this is my same mailbox, but now on a laptop. All the things that I've done on that iPad have been synced back here. As you can see, that email from Peter that I flagged is flagged here now. That happened after I got connected on the iPad to the network again. And now that I'm here back on the desktop, there's a set of scenarios which, despite mobile becoming more and more popular, desktop or laptop still provides the best possible experience. And one of those scenarios is when you're composing an email that is long, that has a lot of rich, complex content, and it's much easier to compose those emails when you have a full-size keyboard available to you. In that context of composing those rich emails, one thing that we heard a lot from customers is being able to create and edit tables when you're composing an email in OWA is really important. So it's something that we introduced recently in SP1 and in Office 365 as well, is the ability to create tables and do some basic editing on those tables. So something that a lot of people will find useful whenever they are composing those more complex emails. The other thing that we heard a lot from people is being able to copy an image, let's say from Paint or from your clipboard, and be able to paste it in your email. Something that you can do in Word, something that you can do in Outlook, but until recently, you couldn't do in Outlook web app, and now you can. So it comes handy when you're having to do something like this. And the other thing that we know a lot of people do when they're using email is to share links to web pages with colleagues and people that they work with. So we want to make sure that that experience was richer. So what we do now is when you do something like sharing a link, we try to bring content from the page that you're linking to make that email that you're sending more visually rich and compelling. So in this case, this is some coverage that we have already from the keynote yesterday that was published on PC Word. And we're able to bring some of that content to the email by just having you paste a link in there. So some of the things that you can do now when you're composing emails in Outlook web app. So let's talk a little bit now about triage and attachments and the work that we're doing in that space. And the demo I'm going to show now is I'm going to look for an email that I have from Paul, one of my colleagues. I know we are putting together a spreadsheet with some credit card numbers, and I want to see if I can quickly find that from Paul. So I'll just look for emails from Paul. There's still quite a bit of those emails here. So I think it has a spreadsheet somewhere. So now I only have two options, and this is the one that I'm looking for. So I was able to quickly narrow down the query and get to the email that I was looking for. And I'm able to look at that attachment, that spreadsheet, side by side with the email. So that provides me with a much more efficient way of interacting with the content in the attachment as well as the email in a side-by-side way. By the way, these credit card numbers, if you need them, this is now the time to write them down. I'm not going to have them available to you later in the session, so it's now or never. So take them down if you want. So in this case, Paul, Krish, and I, we were collecting the credit card numbers so that we can send to a travel agent that we work with so that that person can do the travel expenses for us here at Mac. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this spreadsheet. It has all the information I have, and I'm going to send to that travel agent, which is outside our organization. So I have that. And shortly after, you can see that there's a little bit of warning on the screen saying, whoa, 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 you can't send this email because it contains sensitive information. And that's showing us how we're integrating some of the information protection technologies, in this case in particular, DLP, data loss prevention, into OWA. DLP is something that has been integrated with Transport and with Outlook at the initial release of Exchange 2013. And with Exchange SP1, we introduced that DLP integration into OWA. So in this case, the IT admin in my organization basically created a DLP policy that said users cannot send credit card information to external contacts. That's the policy that he defined. And my email violates that policy. It has credit card numbers, and the travel agent is an entity external to the organization. So in this case, I can actually apply what we call an override. And in this case, I can still send that message to the travel agent. The IT policy could be such that I could not override if that was the need of the organization. But anyhow, this shows you a little bit how we integrate with DLP. Now, I'm switching to IE to show you another demo, which is SMIME. SMIME is another feature that we integrated in Outlook Web App in Exchange 2013 SP1. And it's something that is only supported on IE browsers, and thus why I switched from Chrome to IE. So again, if I look for emails from Paul writes me a lot of emails. I should be able to find, although I'm not finding one here, I should be able to find an email from him, this one, which he sent me with a SMIME digital signature. So when he sent that email, he was prompted to insert a smart card to include his digital signature in that email. And I can see here that his email was signed, and the signature is valid. So that tells me that the email was really sent by Paul, and it wasn't changed along the way. So the content is the same content that Paul created when he sent me that email. When I reply to him, my reply will also be signed by default, since the email I got from him was signed. I also have the option to encrypt that message as well. So not only now that email will have that digital signature, it will be completely encrypted, completely opaque to everything, every component that handles that email. The only two entities that will be able to see the content are me and Paul. Nothing else, not even the Exchange server itself, can have access to the content since S-MIME provides end-to-end encryption. And then when I send it, I should be prompted very soon to provide my PIN for my smart card. And that's the way I can provide that digital signature that ensures that the email was sent. Well, looks like some problem with my smart card, so the demo God's not helping in this one. But anyhow, that would be how my digital signature would be included on the email, and then that would be sent to Paul. So now that's the end of my demo. With that, I want to invite Krish to come up to stage and to talk about people in groups.
Thanks, Eduardo. All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for attending our session today. I know 9 a.m. in the morning after a long attendee party is always hard. And a lot of people said they'll attend this session, which I think is pretty much in their bed right now. Cool. So my name is Krish Gowley. I'm a program manager in the People and Groups team in Exchange. And I'm going to walk you through two big investments that we've made in the past, and which is on its way to production. One is on the people side, and the other one is on the group side. Before I get started, I want to tell a short story. A few years back, I was having a conversation with a customer. His name is Joey. He runs a recruiting firm, a small business recruiting firm. He has about 12, 14 people in his company. And I was there to have a conversation about his communication practices and habits to better understand how our customers communicate with people and try to address some of the inherent challenges that they face during their communication habits. During my time there, I was watching him do his regular job, and constantly he uses LinkedIn a lot to source potential candidates. He connects with them on LinkedIn. He copies their email addresses and any other contact information over to his primary email client, sends them emails. And believe it or not, he also uses Facebook a lot to do the same thing, source potential candidates. So fair warning, if you have something in your Facebook account you don't want your future employers to see, then now might be a good time to go clean that up. Well, maybe after the session. So just stepping back and watching him juggle between 3 or 4 different services and 2 or 3 devices was just extremely, extremely painful for me to watch. There has to be a much more streamlined way to manage contact information, manage people information all in one place. What do we know from our experiences, right? So many small businesses and our EDU customers do not create or update a directory. And this might also be true for some of you large companies out there, because creating and updating a directory on an ongoing basis involves a lot of management. Facebook and LinkedIn are becoming sources where people are performing business transactions. It's not just for social outside work. People are doing work and actual business there on these services. And finally, it's extremely painful to kind of manage all these information in one place and keep them in sync and update and keep them updated on a regular basis. So to address these problems, we introduced a feature called Connect. What does Connect let me do? With Connect, you can manage all your contact information in one place. Once you connect, you can download information that has been updated on Facebook and LinkedIn, and information such as your email addresses, your phone numbers, any other contact information, down to your Office 365 service. And you will be able to, and with the power of contact linking, you'll be able to connect multiple pieces of information together, so you always see a complete picture of the people that you want to communicate with. You can keep all these contacts in sync. We have a process that goes and updates the information of your contacts twice a day. So if any of your contacts changed their information recently, maybe they moved and got a new phone number, you can be rest assured that we will have the most updated information as soon as they make those updates in Facebook or LinkedIn. You can download pictures of these people, so your experience really comes to life when people's pictures are downloaded and they are shown all across Office 365. And finally, you can communicate right from Office 365 without ever having to leave the service that you're so used to and where your email habits lie. I want to quickly run through a demo of how this might work. Okay. So for this demo, I'm going to be James. James is a recent grad from UT Austin. He just joined the small company called Contoso, and since he communicates mostly with people who he has on Facebook and LinkedIn, he wants to quickly connect and download all their contact information. James navigates to People Hub, and he sees that there's a link to connect to Facebook and LinkedIn. After a quick sign-up process, where we create a subscription on James's mailbox in Office 365, we establish a connection back to LinkedIn service, and we start downloading those contact information through our transport sync process. He can do the same with Facebook. Since I'm already connected on this machine with Facebook, it doesn't ask me to re-enter my credentials again. It just asks me if I want to allow Office 365 to get all this information from my Facebook page. And just like that, in a few easy steps, you start seeing contacts being downloaded from Facebook and LinkedIn. And once again, your pictures are downloaded, all the information that they provided are downloaded, and it's a very streamlined experience. If you want to communicate with somebody, you could do it from right here. And also from anywhere else where you can address people in Office 365. A little bit more information about Connect. So Connect is available now in Office 365. There are no current plans to have this available on-prem. It's Office 365 only. We have Facebook and LinkedIn as our providers at this point, but I would like to get your suggestions and feedback on if there are other providers that will make it useful or more useful for people in the audience. Currently, you can connect from OVA, but then once you connected, all the information downloads off to your Outlook client as well, so it's available there. And Facebook is available only for our P and academics queues at this point. We are working diligently to make that available for our enterprise queues as well. Okay, so after my next topic, unified groups. I think most of you guys were at the keynote demo yesterday, and where Steve presented unified groups. I want to kind of start off with what are the key problems we saw with our customers and what kind of led us down the path of creating unified groups. Firstly, DLs have existed in Exchange for many, many, many years. It's an extremely powerful concept. It is something people use a lot in our customer environments. However, DLs locked information, unnecessarily so, in individual people's mailboxes. If you had a project where a new person joined the project and he wanted to find out more history about what has happened since the project started, then he's out of luck, unless somebody who was in the project is able to go look through all their emails and any other content that was shared and manually forward it off to the new guy who joined. There's no history in one place that can quickly have the new person come up to speed on a project. And secondly, frankly, DLs were created in the 90s, right? It is not the most user-friendly experience ever. It often required IT support. It required management, which took you out of your current experience and often into a management portal that was not, again, user-friendly at all. So it's definitely not an experience we can be proud of in the current year. And finally, disconnected experiences. This is one of the key pain points that we've been repeatedly hearing from our end users. You create a DL in Exchange, and you want to also share content, or you want to have a shared content repository. Well, you go to SharePoint or your OneDrive, you create a site and a document library there. You add the people who are in the project, and you manage permissions. And if people come and go, you have, again, 2, 3, 4 different other places where you have to go update all these permissions and manage people. Very, very disconnected. With all that as our key problems we want to solve, we invested in this concept called unified groups, and you got a flavor of that in the keynote yesterday. One of our principles when designing groups was that every user should be able to create or join a group within 2 or 3 clicks from anywhere in the Office 365 experience. It has to be super available to every user, and it cannot be something that takes them out of the context of where they are already. Secondly, groups should help you focus. The problem with DLs today is that when you join a DL and when the traffic in the DL starts increasing, you start seeing the volume of the mails in your inbox go up. Then people have to go and set up rules manually and try to move that into another folder and manage that on an ongoing basis. With groups, you have none of that. Groups are already in a separate mailbox. It's easily accessible for people when they want to, but it's not in the face when they don't want it. So that's one of the key design principles. We want to make sure groups kind of get built. And finally, groups are social. Information that doesn't have to be unnecessarily locked in your inbox is now public by default. So groups are public by default. There is always an option for users to have private groups if that is the need or the business requirement for the groups that they want to have. But by making groups public by default, you start organically getting information discovered in your organization, adding more value to your organization. With that, I want to quickly run through another demo of what groups looks like in Office 365. OK, so starting off again from where we left, James, who recently joined Contoso, is interested in now understanding the discussions and conversations that are happening with with this company. So he selects Browse Groups to view all groups in his organization. This is an area where he can see all the groups in his organization. If he knows the group he's looking for, he can select the search bar and search for the specific group. In this case, since he doesn't know, he's just browsing through the groups. And as I mentioned, James is a recent grad from UT Austin, and he discovers a group called UT Austin Longhorns. And he gets interested to understand what is in this group. With the group card, you get links to all the sites or properties that get created when the group gets created. So there's an email address, which is, again, an extremely powerful entity. Groups are email addressable. Wherever you are, whichever email client you are, you can send a mail to the group, and the group will receive it. Group has a conversation module, calendar, members where you manage memberships and privileges, documents, and sites. James, in this case, wants to navigate to the member module to quickly take a look at who is in this group. By default, the people who he sees in this group are sorted according to his social connections with the people in the group. So people who he has had frequent communications with are on the top left, all the way down to the bottom right, who he may not know at all. So in this case, Paul and Eduardo, who also happen to be in his extended team, are part of this UT Austin group. So he's interested in actually discovering Paul and Eduardo also went to UT Austin. And if he were an admin of this group, this is where he would find ways to manage the membership. So he can promote people to admins, he can remove people, he can from the group or from the admin privileges. So again, within the suite experience, a quick, easy, nice way to manage memberships for your group. At the top, he sees a place where he can instantly join the group and also navigate between the modules of the group. In this case, he wants to quickly look at the conversations that the group is having to find out whether the group is active. Maybe if the group is active, he will join the group. And looks like the group is fairly active. In fact, there's a happy hour today at 5 p.m. At 6th Street. So he's interested, and looks like President Obama is also giving a presidential keynote at our at the LBJ library at UT Austin. So he's discovering information. He can participate in the conversation without even being a member of the group. Again, the quick reply keeps people in a very social environment. There's no pop-outs that happen in the group experience. He can compose a message quickly to the group as well. And it's all very fluid, very fast, and very social feel-like. And at this point, he sees that there's enough value in this group, and he wants to join the group. And within the group experience, a couple of seconds, he can join the group. And you saw an email notification that James got saying that he's joined the group, where he can also navigate to other group properties as he wants. Paul, when he talks about calendar, will cover a little bit about what group calendar enables users to accomplish. So I'm going to skip calendar at this point and quickly go to the site tab. So within the Office 365 experience, you can go from a conversation module of the group directly to the group site, where he can see what is happening in this group, and also the document library where content can be shared without James or anyone who set up the group having to do anything. So it's a very simple, streamlined experience that people get. So I showed a bunch of features in the group. I just wanted to summarize them in one place. We really think groups empowers users to accomplish easy and highly collaborative experiences in their organizations. Groups provides a great place to have conversations, which is very social. It provides a calendar that can be shared, and events can be added into the calendar with one click. And of course, having documents for the first time in the history of our Office 365 suite, we have connected experiences between Exchange and SharePoint, so you don't have to manage things very differently between these experiences. And of course, easy management of memberships when you have a group that you need to manage. So with that, I would like to hand it over to Paul. Thanks. Here you go.
Thanks. All right, thanks, Krish. My name's Paul Tischhauser. I'm a program manager in Exchange. I work on Calendar. And we're going to show you a few things that we've done in the last year and a half and a little bit of what we did back in 2013 that you may not be familiar with. So let's get started. All right, so I'm going to finish up talking about some of the great things we've done in OA Calendar around groups. So I'm going to show you some good uses for a good group calendar. Some of you have seen the demo or in the keynote might be thinking, why would I even want a group calendar? How could it be useful to me and my team? And so in a minute I'll switch to a demo of this, but just to summarize, I think there's three things that I think that you get out of a group calendar that are really useful. The first thing is it's a great place to dump all the meetings and events around one group. And then when new people come on, it's a great place because of that for those people to discover what's interesting to them. They can pick and choose the things that they want to add to their own calendar rather than being barraged by a lot of events that they may not be interested in. So that's the first one. The second thing is that when you put things on a group calendar, like a meeting, because it's a shared calendar that everybody can edit, it gives you some real flexibility. Let me give you an example. We've been using group calendars within my team, and we have a bunch of weekly meetings that we run in our team. Some I'm interested in, others I'm not so interested in. But the nice thing is if one of the folks in the team who organized a particular weekly meeting is out, they're on vacation or they're sick, somebody else in the team can come in, and because we can co-organize, we're able to either update the meeting or cancel it if somebody else is not, in the building. And finally, the last thing is group calendars is not just about meetings. I think if you think of all the things that you work together on as a group, a lot of times you have vacations that you want to be aware about, you have deadlines or milestones of projects that you're working on, and the group calendar is a great place to put all that stuff. So with that in mind, let's take a look at an actual group calendar. Give me one moment to bring this up. All right, so you can see my calendar here, and I've just been recently added to a group. So you can see down here, as I'm added to groups or as I join groups, those groups and their calendars appear automatically in my calendar list. So I've selected this group, the Longhorn group that Chris was showing you, and I've displayed it overlaid with my own calendar. So the group calendar's in green, and my calendar's in blue. Overlaid calendars was one of the things we added in OA in 2013. And I'm just going to show you a few things here of content that's in the group calendar. So let's say I've just joined the group. You notice that the group has chosen to highlight some of the things maybe to pop on the calendar using categories. So this dark green event immediately calls out to me, and it's something that I'm kind of interested in. So I take a look at this, and I notice there's a campus tour. You can tell by this little peek that we give you that the campus tour has been organized directly on the Longhorn calendar. So what I'm going to do is I'm thinking about adding it to my calendar. Maybe that's something I want to go to. But one thing that would be really nice to know would be, is anybody else going to this thing, or I'm going to show up and be there by myself? So again, this is the power of putting things on the group calendar. Whenever somebody accepts that event or adds it to their calendar, you can see that. So I clicked on the accepted summary, and I can see there's a few folks in the group that have already added this to their calendar. They're going to go. Since I know Tony, that's something that I would feel comfortable going to. So I'm going to click on the Add to My Calendar. And it takes a little bit of time, but what we're doing under the covers when you add something to your calendar from another calendar is we're simply forwarding that event to your inbox. And then we have a little bit of logic on the Exchange side. When that invite hits the inbox, because you forwarded it to yourself, we're like, you want that event, we will just accept it onto your calendar. So you notice here the event that was added to my calendar is busy. It's been accepted. It's not tentative. And if I go back and I look here, you can see now there's 4 people that have accepted that event onto their calendar. And if I look, I should be one of them. And there I am. So again, that's a powerful thing about group calendars. You can see that it's total transparency around the event. So as an example of a couple other things that you might want to put on your calendar, on your group calendar, here's a deadline that somebody in the group has sent to the group. So this was really simple. They had this deadline for applications in the college on their calendar, and they're like, oh, that would be interesting to the group. All they had to do was add the group as an attendee. And again, when an invite goes out to the group, anything that hits the group inbox that's an invite, Exchange will automatically accept it. So once Robin sent this to the group, she didn't have to do anything else. It was automatically shared with the group. Depending on what kind of group you have, like is this a working group or a social group, you might also want to have group members put their vacation on. Okay, so this I use all the time in my team because we have people, leaving for different places or vacation. And I use the group calendar personally as the place to check, are they going to be in this week or next, or when are they coming back from an extended vacation? Now, Katie, in this case, did the same process that Robin did in the previous item. She just sent her vacation appointment, which was on her calendar, to the group, and it was auto-accepted. But if you wanted to, because every member can edit the group calendar, you could simply tap on the calendar itself. This is something that we added, tap and type, something that we added in 2013. And we added a little bit of extra to this control now, so that if you're overlaying multiple calendars that you can edit, just to make sure that if this was a dentist appointment, maybe you didn't want the rest of the group to know that you had a dentist appointment or a doctor's appointment. It's really easy. I just use the up arrow to select the calendar. And now that goes on my calendar, not the group's calendar. So one other thing I wanted to show you is when you have a group calendar, I was talking about some of these events that kind of pop visually. Each group gets its own set of categories that it can manage. So if you want to highlight vacation or projects that you're working on, you have an entirely separate set of categories that's not related to your personal categories that you can manage with the group. All right, so that's group calendar. Right, but we didn't just work on group calendar in the last year. So, by the way, I should have asked this at the beginning. How many people actually in this audience use OWA? Could you just raise your hand? Oh, thanks for that big hand back there, David. That's great. I remember when I first joined the Exchange team years ago, I used OWA almost exclusively when I went home on one of the desktops we had at home to manage my calendar. And in the last 5 to 7 years particularly, we've been trying to push the envelope to make sure that we make OWA a great time management companion on whatever screen you're working on, whether it's a desktop browser or more recently we've given you device support on iOS and just recently announced Android. But we're always trying to get better and better relative to Outlook. So if you look on the left side, these are the things that we delivered in 2013. Overlaid calendars, find a room, things that you get in Outlook today. We also tried to leverage the fact that we're now in the cloud, so we did a little bit of work with other services like Bing. So has anybody ever tried to add a location in OWA and get the nice little map? Anybody tried that? A couple people. Okay, mostly from Exchange. All right, I'll show you that in a moment. And the other thing we did with services that I thought was really great in integrating services was the online meeting feature. So in 2013, you can have the Exchange server talk to the Lync server to set up an online meeting for you with just one press of a button in OWA. All right, so let's go back and take a look at some of the new stuff that we've done, which is on the right side here, a few new features that you may be interested in that we've worked on since 2013. So I'm back on my calendar. The first one I want to show you, let's escape out of that, is the new search box that we have over here. We've never had calendar search in OWA. Duh, we should have had that a long time ago, but we've got it now. Now you notice on the last part of the demo, I was adding an event that was a campus tour. Let's see if, maybe I'm interested in other tours that the group might be doing. So if I press enter, you should be able to search both your own calendar and any shared calendar. Well, search timed out. It's not happy today. Let's try that one more time. And what you're going to get when this comes up, if it comes up, is a list of events that match your search criteria. I'm going to try one more time against my calendar. And I'm going to try meeting. No, let's try will. Okay. So we still have a bug or two to work out with shared calendars. But the idea is we give you a list of results just like you would get in mail and a preview of what that item is. And one really nice thing I like about our search results in calendar is if you go to other search, calendar search online, sometimes if you have a recurring meeting or a recurring event, the entire screen will be filled with results of instances of that one event. So we tried to do something a little smart, which was if you have a recurring event in your search results, we're going to let you to pick and choose what instance you actually care about and not flood you with results for that one event. Just a nice little thing. All right, so search was one thing. Let me show you another thing that we do that gets us closer to Outlook. I'm going to make somebody my delegate, and you're going to see how easy it is. So all I do, I want to make Katie my delegate. Now, we've supported delegates and have in 2013 and before once they're set up, but you could never configure them in OA. You always had to go to Outlook to do that. So in this case, Katie is the person I want to make my delegate. All I have to do in the drop-down here is give her delegate access. It lets me know that she's going to get all my meeting requests if she's my delegate, and I'm done. When I send that, just like you would expect, Katie's going to get a little notification that she's now my delegate and a link to open my calendar. And if I want to remove her later, or if I want to tweak some of the delegate configuration that you can do in Outlook, you can see I can do that here. I can control who gets the meeting request, just me or her or both. And if I really trust Katie, just like I could do with Outlook, I can give her access to my private items. So again, giving you the same ability to configure delegates in OA that you already have in Outlook. All right, the last one I want to show you, and I'll go quick so I leave time for Mike, because he's got some cool stuff to show you. I'm going to schedule a meeting, and I'm going to show you how much easier we've made it to schedule a meeting and negotiate a time to meet. So in this case, I want to schedule a meeting with Krish. So you notice instead of creating a meeting request, typing his name in, and seeing his free busy in the scheduling assistant, it's really easy to use the calendar search box not only to look for things in my calendar, but to look for people's calendars themselves. So because I communicate frequently with Krish, he comes up in my autocomplete here. If he didn't, I could search from the directory. Tap that. It's going to open Krish's calendar alongside mine, if we're lucky. We'll give it a moment. One of the nice things about bringing up somebody else's calendar overlaid with your own is you can immediately see where both of you are available or not available. Let me get rid of the group calendar so that it doesn't confuse things. I want to meet him tomorrow, and you can see there's a lot of open space tomorrow. So I'm just going to create a meeting with Krish. We'll get coffee. Oh, I have to do it. I want to look for coffee places in Austin, so I'm going to do the location search. And you can see we do the Bing integration so that I get a bunch of locations here in Austin. I'll pick this one. So now I have a resolved location that we can use to generate a map when you go back to that appointment. I'm going to add Krish. I know he's available because I just saw his calendar, and I'm going to send it. Now, while we're waiting for it to hit Krish's inbox, I'm going to switch to his calendar in a second. That location that I just added and resolved with Bing, if I tap on the peak, I get a map. So I really love that feature in OA. And I can get that on my phone as well. So now let me switch over to Krish's calendar. And actually, I'm going to look at his inbox at the invite that he got. So you can see the typical actions that he gets with a meeting request. We've added a new one. Propose new time, which you've been able to do in Outlook for a long time. He doesn't want to meet me on Wednesday. Even though he's free, he wants to meet the next day. He's just difficult that way. So you can see when he goes to propose a new time, we take him into our new scheduling assistant that we built for 2013. We leverage that. He wants to go to Thursday. He can see that, hey, 12 o'clock is a better time for us to meet, and he only wants to meet for 30 minutes. So he sends that back to me. We've got a counter proposal ready to send. He sends it. Now let me switch back and show you what I would see. There's the counter propose in my inbox. This is the time that I had suggested. Here's the counter proposal. We tried to do the end-to-end story so that the organizer can come back in, take the counter proposal, and say, is this going to work? So that little link into the scheduling assistant brings up, again, the current meeting time, but also the one that Krish has proposed. So I select that. I can see that, yeah, that's going to work for me. So fine. OK. And I send that counter-proposed meeting back. We're going to meet on Thursday. Oh, and I have to do this too. Sorry, Mike. Because he's going to be in one place and I'm going to be in another, we're not going to be able to meet for coffee. So I'm going to make this an online meeting because he's going back to Redmond. And you saw how fast that was. That was the Exchange server talking to the Lync server and getting all of the Lync stuff for an online meeting put into the body. We'll send that off. And that's it. That's the calendar demo. Hope you liked it. Mike, you want to come up and talk to us a little bit about what's new in authentication?
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Paul. My name's Mike Brickman, and I'm here to talk to you about Auth. I'm a developer on the OA team. Can you guys hear me all right in the back? Cool. So, I'm going to talk about authentication. We've made a lot of improvements over the last year. I'll start by telling you a little bit about what's new in the cloud. One of our biggest improvements is we've moved away from the S4U and Kerberos protocol in authentication. One of the big advantages about this is we've improved performance by we now send all the claims and all the claims and requirements in the token, so we avoid some extra round trips to the Active Directory. We've also added better handling of mailbox failovers in high availability scenarios to make it quicker and easier to respond when a database gets moved and get you to your inbox a little bit quicker. We have a lot of integration with encryption now, which you'll hear about in the data protection scenarios. And we've made a ton of performance and reliability fixes. These fixes include better error messages, improving the logout workflow, and a ton of logging improvements, which now help us diagnose customer incidents a little bit quicker. Similar to what we've done in the data center, on-premise, we've also added better handling of, we've added the same better handling mailbox failovers and performance and reliability fixes. But the two biggest adds we've had here in SP1, we now have support for ADFS and SSL offloading, which I'll talk about on the next slide. Cool. So what SSL offloading is it allows you to use a dedicated hardware device for decrypting SSL traffic, so your Exchange servers can focus on mail. Essentially what happens is on the left-hand side here, the client makes a request over HTTPS, and when it hits the load balancer, the SSL offloader decrypts the traffic and sends it on to the CAS servers over HTTP. Your response is then rendered from your mailbox server. It comes back to the load balancer where it's re-encrypted and sent back to the client securely over HTTPS. So I'm going to move quickly into ADFS, which I'm really excited to announce that with Exchange SP1, we now support ADFS, which provides two-factor auth that a lot of people have been asking for. It's also really easy to configure, so I'll show you guys that now. Not sure what just happened here. Bear with me a second. Give me 1 second. If this doesn't come back soon, I'll just walk you through this quickly with a video that I made. Cool. So you guys probably recognize this. This is the standard login page for Forms Auth, just a username and password prompt. What I can do here is I can enter my credentials and log in to see the inbox. Just bear with me a second on the timing of this. So once the inbox loads, that's pretty familiar to all of you, just simple inbox. That's not so interesting, but with a simple commandlet to configure the virtual directory, I can tell it to enable ADFS authentication and to use that instead of forms-based auth. So while that's running, I can take you to the ADFS screen. I've configured 4 relying parties, 2 for OA and 2 for the control panel. I have separate relying parties for internal and for external in case I want to have different settings for that. So while that's happening, I can also show you each relying party requires 3 different claims. It's very easy to configure. All we require is the UPN, the primary SID of the user, and any group SIDs from the Active Directory. Before I started the demo, I had also configured the organization with a few important properties so Exchange could trust that ADFS. I configured it with the ADFS issuer, which is basically the ADFS server that it's coming from, the audience URIs, and the signing thumbprint, so I knew which cert to trust. So now you can see here, I take you to another page when you log in. This one has an additional form of authentication. We have a test 2-factor auth provider that we have where I can click to get a code. If you wanted to do this in real life, you could work with 2-factor auth providers like ADFS or Azure Active Directory. So what I can do here is I can click and have a code sent to my cell phone, which once it arrives, I can now enter my password and credentials. Along with this separate 2-factor auth code, I can click login, and now I can be taken to my same inbox. And from here on in, it's exactly the same experience as you would have with OA if you were logging in with Forms Auth. So with that, well, that was the demo. And with that, I think I can invite the rest of the guys up to take questions.
All right, so just a quick overview of what we covered. Eduardo had talked about features that we built recently in Inbox and mobile. I spoke about people in groups. Paul covered calendar, and Mike covered auth. And we want to quickly point you to some of the sessions that are happening later during the day or tomorrow, where we will go and spend a lot more time on some of the topics that are of a lot of interest. So here are all the sessions that are happening later during the day or tomorrow. So definitely encourage you participating and attending some of these sessions if you're interested in knowing more about those topics. With that, I would like to open the floor for questions and also ask people to fill out your evaluation form. Thank you.
Yes. Hello.
Is that mic on?
Why don't you go ahead and we'll
Yeah.
repeat the question.
Of the stuff that you showed, is this stuff also available in Outlook? And with the one exception going up one, is it available on?
You want to take that?
So let me just repeat the question for the rest of the room. So the essence of the question was, of the stuff that we showed today, is it all available in Outlook? And is it also all available for on-premise deployment, right? It's kinda. It really depends on which specific feature or demo you're referring to. For example, for the stuff that I showed, most of the features are. The DLP integration is, S-MIME has been available in Outlook for a while now. but some are not. For example, the inline preview with the web link, that is not in Outlook at this point. And so it really depends on specific features. Regarding on-prem and online, sort of the same thing applies. Most of the features are available on-premise. It's effectively the same code base. I think there are some features that we choose to enable only for Exchange Online. I think groups, Facebook.
It's an example of something that is only available online. So if you had any specific features that you wanted to learn more details about, we could take the discussion offline, and we'll be happy to tell you exactly whether it will be available on-premise and Outlook as well.
With the LinkedIn and the Facebook sync, sort of two questions. Is the sync one way only downloading information, or is anything like my contact information uploaded? And the follow-up question is, could administrators disable that sync capability if they have any security concerns for organization policies?
Sure. So the question was, when a user connects to Facebook and LinkedIn, is any information from the user being transferred to either of those services? The answer is, for LinkedIn, we do not send any information back to the LinkedIn server. You only do a one-way download. However, for Facebook, we do send the contacts that are currently there in your My Contacts folder, not anywhere else, just in your My Contacts folder, back to Facebook. And that's one of the reasons why it's only available to small businesses and EDUs currently. We want to add more controls for enterprise customers so that they can control how to and who they want to enable this feature for. Your second question on what are the controls available for IT admins to manage this feature? It's a simple one-line PowerShell commandlet, which is set over mailbox policy, Facebook enable equals false, or LinkedIn enable equals false. That will disable the feature, and true will enable the feature again. And you can also do that on ECP in your admin tools. So, thank you.
So,
Repeat the question.
so the question is, if you use ADFS and 2FA, are there any concerns for the OA app? Are you talking specifically with 2FA, the concerns, or just with ADFS and OA in general? Yep, so this work was explicitly done for ADFS with OA. So we've tested it pretty well. There are still a few small things. We had some issues with offline support, which were configuration related. There are some issues with running web application proxy in pre-authentication mode, where you'd want to put it in pass-through to avoid some issues there. But for the most part, we're pretty well tested, and we've had some good coverage. So yeah. Yeah, there's a config blog somewhere. If we sync up after this, I can help you find it.
So the question is, what's the roadmap to support the apps for Android and iOS for on-premise? So it's actually supported with CU3. So as long as you have Exchange 2013 CU3 installed, or of course SP1, you should be able to use those applications on those devices to connect to your on-premise Exchange server.
Okay, so the question was around licensing. If every group was a mailbox by itself, will each of those require special licensing? That is a business question. I'm not fully sure if I'll be able to provide a satisfactory answer, but I can definitely connect you to Steve, who probably knows a lot more about it. But I think in general, the idea is that every SKU type, like a P SKU, gets 200 or 300 groups that they can create. And so every SKU type will have a set limited number of groups that they may be able to create online. And how that transfers to on-prem is still TBD, because we don't quite have a roadmap on when that will land on-prem sometime next year. So, and if you meet me after the session, sir, I can give you more details on that licensing.
I have a question on groups too. You showed that people could actually browse and like previous conversations, see members, and join groups. How granular are the access controls there? Like, could I allow all marketing to view all these marketing groups so that I can touch what was in the same groups?
So currently, the question was how granular are the boundaries for which groups I can view conversations with. So that's great feedback. We have an item that we want to work on in the future where we can provide IT admins with the control to say, this is public to just my division, or like draw a boundary within a team to say, this is where the public boundary ends. It's not all my company. It's probably somewhere within the company. But right now, it's public within the boundary of the company. And just to complete that, right? So you can also create private groups if you did not want any public conversations.
Yeah, my concern is like if you get a large contractor for you want to see company data that's been there for 3 months, 6 months.
Yeah.
Maybe you wouldn't want them to be able to join all these more.
So that you can do. You can actually limit people who can view groups in your organization, or who can create groups in your organization. So what I'm talking about is when you create a group and you have access to view groups, is the content available from across the company, or is it kind of around a specific? It's all or nothing, not granular, and you can pick and choose which users get the feature.
So the question is about features that are missing in OA, and if and when they will be added, such as search folders, delay send, and a recall. We don't have any specific roadmap for those features, but if you're interested, we can talk more offline and maybe get more details about your specific scenario, in addition to the general definition of the features.
For SMIME support, what options are available for where the certificate
So the question is for SMIME, what are the options in terms of where the certificates reside? You're talking about the end user certificates, or you're talking about the PKI as a whole?
The private keys.
Yeah, so the private keys, you can either have them in the local store of the end user's machines, or you can configure to be on smart cards. In the demo, I had an issue doing the end-to-end piece, but the smart card has my certificate. So you can either choose local store or smart card.
So how would that work for OA and iOS?
It's a good question. So how does it work for on iOS and Android? So currently we only support SMIME on IE browsers on desktop machines. So we don't support it in MOA at this point. Yes, we don't support it on iOS nor Android at this point. One of the reasons is, how do you get the smart card there?
Cool. So thank you all again for attending our session. If you have any further questions, we'll be at the OA booth later this afternoon. And Paul said he'll be available at the OA booth right after lunch. So if you have any questions on calendar, he'll be there for you. Thank you again.